Chelsea, the Reading Outlaw, here to do the rest of my May wrap up really quickly for you guys. Most of what I read in May was a part of the Book Buddy-a-thon, and I will post my video to that up here so you can go and check out what I read a bulk of in the first half of May. This video is going to take care of everything else that I read in the month of May, which is not a lot, but is some, so I felt it was worth coming and showing you guys. So first up, in terms of the fiction that I finished, the longer fiction, I finished The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. I am dreadfully late on this book for the BookTube SFF Awards. I gave this book 3 stars. The end definitely turned it around for me and actually probably earned it that 3rd star. This book is about science fiction world in which people, certain people are born with the power to kind of control not the weather, although they can make things happen with the weather. It's called orogeny, and essentially what it is you can pull energy from the earth and you can manipulate the earth to do certain things. We follow 3 different perspectives throughout this book. One of them is told in the second person, so they are unnamed. They are just referred to as you the entire time. And I think this book took me so long to get through because a couple of the viewpoints I was very, very interested in, and a couple of them I just was not. Like, I just did not care. So I would race through certain sections and then would be left just kind of slogging through the other ones. Like I said, the ending of the book did turn it around for me, so I'm really, really glad that I finished. And it was good enough that I think I might pick up the second one in the series when it comes out. I think it's called The Obelisk Gate. I think I'll put a little note down here if that's incorrect. But otherwise, I was fair to middling on this one. And then also I finished up Perfect State, which is another piece of fiction for the BookTube SFF Awards. It's nominated in the short fiction category. It is a little novella written by Brandon Sanderson that is not part of the Cosmere. It is a complete standalone that basically puts its own spin on the kind of brain in a jar theory, essentially that all of humanity, we are just brains in jars being fed different sets of electrical impulses, and that everything we know is a reality is actually just a fantasy. The twist he puts on it is that the brains in the jar know that that's what's happening, and it's just about how certain members of those communities kind of deal with that and interact with that, and what it means when your entire reality is essentially not actually reality and is being manipulated by outside forces. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't perfect. Some of the battle scenes were a little convoluted, which was surprising to me because I think Brandon Sanderson actually usually writes really good battle scenes, but I enjoyed it, and like I said, I gave it 4 stars. And then most of the rest of the month was spent reading graphic stuff, some of which I don't have to show you either because it was digital or because it was due back at the library. So the first one was digital, and I read the first extended issue of Monstrous by Marjorie Liu, which I absolutely adored. Caitlin from Kitty G has been raving about this one lately, so I had to pick it up. I really, really, really liked it. I thought there was a lot of information to kind of come to grips with, and so there were certain times where I was left kind of confused and I had to flip back and read earlier panels and earlier pages to kind of get a grasp on what was going on. But once I did, I absolutely loved it. I think that the art style is absolutely phenomenal. It's absolutely gorgeous. Any kind of weaknesses or deficiencies in plot are more than made up for by how beautiful the artwork is. And I'm really excited to get to issue number 2. And then because it was due back at the library and because I really did not like it, I read Rat Queens Volume 3. I think I am just done with this series. I thought that the first one started out so strong and the last 2 have just been so entirely disappointing. And if you haven't heard the news, if you are into comic books or if you kind of are following along, Rock Upchurch, who is, I'm willing to say, a very bad person and who has been in jail for domestic spousal abuse, has recently been released and will be rejoining the Rat Queens team. And I just, on a moral and intellectual level, cannot support a series that is going to purport itself to be strongly feminist and is going to have someone like Rock Upchurch on the team. So this will be my last go around with any of the Rat Queens. So I'm just really disappointed. I'm really disappointed in the whole series. I think everything went downhill after the first issue, so that's a bummer. And then, let's see, graphically, in terms of the stuff I do have to show you, the first one that I read was Descender Volume 1, 10 stars. This was yet another BookTube SFF read. Can you tell that I was woefully irresponsible in putting off some of these reads until the end. These huge like mecha droid robots essentially come to Earth, kill a bunch of people, and in response a group or multiple groups of people kind of commit mass genocide on robots as a whole. Well, this young boy right here, Tim 21, he is essentially in kind of a robot coma when all of that happens. And so he wakes up and he is one of the very, very few robots who are left. And his original source coding as a robot could hold secrets as to why the giant mecha droids ended up coming to Earth in the first place. I absolutely adored this book. I absolutely adored it. The art style isn't actually necessarily one that I would usually prefer. It's got these very kind of sketchy watercolors. Nothing's necessarily incredibly like packed with color. Everything's a little bit washed out. But even then, I absolutely adored this story. There is a mechanical dog in this story who I absolutely loved. There's a big driller machine who is just walking around going, driller is killer, but he really wants to protect Tim 21, and it's very, very sweet. And I was talking with Sarah, a girl that I work with, and she was saying, and I agree with her, that one of the great things about Jeff Lemire's work is that he is incredibly hopeful. And so even in these comic book where lots of horribly tragic things are happening, there still is always this kind of underlying thread of hope and redemption and humor and adorableness and all of those things. So it's really a great balance to strike. And I'm really, really glad that I picked this one up. And then lastly, in terms of the graphic novels that I read, was Southern Bastards Volume 1, Here Was a Man. This is written by Jason Aaron and Jason Latour. So the two Jasons. And this is a realistic fiction, contemporary fiction about a man who returns to his town in Alabama. And so he basically just returns home to his original town, which he ran away from at the age of 18 to join the army. And it's about this essentially kind of almost mafia-esque group of men in his hometown who work for the high school football coach and basically just cause trouble and kind of are enforcers on what happens in the town. And this guy decides that he does not like that. He doesn't like them. He's going to stick up to this group of essentially rebels and troublemakers and, like I said, kind of enforcers. And it's about what happens with him and how he forms those relationships. Certain parts of this book are incredibly sad. There's a lot of violence in this book. But speaking from someone who, well, not from the South, period, I thought that it seemed very true to what I've heard about the South from people who have lived there. It strikes this balance of loving certain aspects of Southern culture and also dealing with the other problematic sides of Southern culture that obviously do arise. So I really, really enjoyed this one. I think I gave it 3 stars, possibly 4 stars on Goodreads. Because like I said, I didn't necessarily, like I enjoyed it, but I didn't necessarily love it. It's another one that the artwork is not necessarily my favorite. Again, it's got some of those like thinner, sketchier lines. It doesn't do really, it makes a really good use of color in the fight scenes and the alternating panels. Here's a page that kind of shows that. But in general, I enjoyed it, even if it wasn't my absolute favorite. That is everything that I read in the month of May. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them. Please let me know down below if you've read any of these, if you want to read any of these, if you have any thoughts, comments, questions. And since I probably won't make like an official announcement video, I will just go ahead and throw it in. I am starting a new weekly update on my Twitter that is called #WhatToReadWednesday, where I will put out a poll and I will have you guys vote and tell me what to read. I have so many books both on my shelves and from the library that I have to get through that I am crowdsourcing the decision, and I'm asking you guys to help me. I read Descender as part of that. I read Rat Queens Volume 3 as part of that, and not every choice is a graphic novel choice. There are some novels and some longer full fiction stuff in there as well. The next one up on the list is Among Others by Jo Walton, and I am so incredibly excited to look forward to seeing that in my June wrap up. And otherwise, hit me up all over the internet and let's talk books. Bye, loves.